Hello and welcome to my Blender to Unity Tower Defense game tutorial, and in this part we're going to start adding some controls to allow us to drag turrets onto our scene. So let's get started. Okay, well this request has come from one of the users on my YouTube channel asking for me to do this now, this drag and drop thing. I was going to work on the missile launch, but to be honest with you I did get a little bit disheartened with the efforts of my particle system for the laser turret, so I thought why not? The guy was Tobias Jensen, here he is. So they're placing the tower system. This is going to be a two-parter. Thank you for your comments, Tobias, much appreciated. This is going to be a two-parter. What we'll do, we'll work on initial placement of the turrets, and then what I'll actually do in a separate part is make it so that these turrets can only be placed in certain locations, because as you'll see if I just run this now, I can stick these things wherever I want. In fact, I don't even know what's going to happen. Let's just see what happens when I do this, because these things have colliders on them. No, it's no problems, it's going straight through. Fair enough. Okay, I guess that's not a bad thing. Okay, right. So we can we'll work on the turret placement system here first, and then, like I say, we'll work on adding where to put them, and also reducing the credits when you place these turrets down in a separate video, because there's quite a lot to do in this one. The first thing I'd like to do is show you how I created the panel here that has the drag and drop facility. What I did, in fact, what I might even do is go into create a new scene just to show you how I go about this. I'll just click new scene. I won't save this scene, but what I'll do is I'll create a new UI and I'll create a new panel. And I've gone very simple on this, as you'll soon see. Let's just zoom out a second. Now, I could be wrong. I'll see in a few moments, but I generally find that whenever I do this, the panel's facing the wrong direction. Let's see if that's the case this time. Now, we want this panel to sit at the bottom and to stay anchored at the bottom and in the center. We don't want it to resize whenever the window resizes. We just want it to stay in the center. So the way to do that is, once now I've clicked this panel, let's just rename it. Let's just call this turret panel. Turret panel, yeah, alright, let's call it that, sorry. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to click on this little rect transform stretch tool here, and we're going to make it go to the bottom middle. Okay, and that moves this little anchor point here, and basically what that means now is that everything will move relative to that. And so what we're saying is it's going to stay at the bottom and in the center. There's various different places you can put this, and it's quite confusing sometimes when you're trying to get things the right size. But if you put it in the bottom middle, what this means is it won't resize itself if you make it wider. Well, as we go through this, it'll become a bit clearer. And what we'll do is we will initially, let's just set the width to 300 by 100. Alright, it's right in the middle, so let's just grab this manipulator tool and drag that down there. And in the bottom panel here, you can see I've got the game. So if I just start dragging that, you can see that it doesn't move it when it doesn't resize it when I do that, and also if I do that, it actually keeps the same size but keeps it in the center, which is exactly what we want. Now, what I did was to create 3 images. I'll just quickly show you those now that we're going to use for our icons, I guess you could call them. I made them 256 by 256. No, I didn't. Excuse me. I made them 4 by 3. So I made them 200 by 150. I think that seemed 4 by 3 seemed to be a good ratio for these things. It doesn't really. That's incorrect the way that looks in here. I don't know why it's done it quite like that. I was showing it as 256 by 128, but I did not save it at that. So yeah, that's curious. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, because you can see it's stretched out. And I also had to create a material for these. So just look at the missile launcher icon. I just simply created a texture. Yeah, so I think I created just a regular texture for it and just dragged that in so that it was the that was the material for each one. So you've got a missile launcher texture, laser gun icon texture, and where's the other one? It must be the machine gun icon. There it is. Material, which is slightly different. Is that the one I wanted, or is that one? No. Yeah, so these are the materials, excuse me. Yes, so here we go. So that's machine gun icon material. Alright, so what we need to do is just add those in, and the way I did that was to well, let's make sure we've got this turret panel the right size. Bearing in mind this is 4 by 3, we want this turret to be 4 by 3 as well. So let's make it well, 3. If we make it, say, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a good ratio. Let's make it 320 by 240. That's massive. But we want to make it 320 times 3, haven't we? Because we've got 3 icons. So let's make that 120 then. So we halve that, 160 by 120, and then we times 160 by 3, which is 480. Oh, 480. Okay, and we've got ourselves a rather large bar, but we can maybe, you'll see in a minute, resize that as we need to. The important thing is it's a 4:3 ratio. This isn't going to be a perfect science because I'm going to add some borders either side of the either side of each icon. It's not going to be touching each other. So what we'll do now is we'll click in here and we'll do create another UI panel, and let's just call this machine gun icon panel. And then all we need to do is we need to just remove the background, so say none, and then on here on the material we're going to choose our machine gun, that one. I've noticed there's a machine gun texture there as well, just be aware of that, and we'll say OK, and then you'll notice it's stretched it all the way across, which is kind of expected because what we want the anchors to be is starting at 0 and finishing at 0.3333. Alright, and the reason we want that, I know it's still the same size but bear with me, is because obviously 0.333 is a third of this panel. Now we just need to set these in here to the borders. You see it's set this right to, if I just set that to 0, it's put it in. Let's just zoom in a touch, but I think that looks a little clumsy. Okay, I will put these, by the way, I've checked in my code into GitHub. I'm really pleased. I hadn't used GitHub before, and my goodness, I hadn't realised how much version control had moved on since sort of SVN. It's a lot better and cleaner now. I'll put the link to GitHub in there. If there's enough desire, I will show people how to. I'll write a small tutorial on how to use GitHub. I strongly encourage you, if you're doing any software development project, to have some form of version control. It will get you out of a hole at some point, and you'll be so grateful that you did. No organisation worth its salt doesn't use version control now. So yes, highly recommend using it. I'll put the link in the comments to how to download this, so you can just grab all this stuff and put it into your project. All right. So what we'll do now, we'll just set the margins on this top. We don't need to do Z, and just right, and just set all those to 5, and you can see now that it's put it in there. It's looking a little bit grey, and the reason for that is because of this colour icon here. If you click on the colour, white is correct, but the alpha's right down, and I found that you can put it at 255, but I'd actually quite like the idea of having something like, I think about 212, something like that, just so that there you would be able to see the background behind it. Alrighty, now hopefully this next bit is very simple. We just need to create another, in fact no, what I'll do actually is I'll just duplicate this, and we'll call this laser gun icon panel. Just remove that there, and the thing we'll need to do is set this here to 0.3333 to 0.6667 or 6666, doesn't make a lot of difference, and you can see that that's where it's put it now. Again, there's no sprite. We'll remove the. What it does is weirdly it adjusts these left and right when you do that. So I think it does anyway. So let's just set that to 5 and 5, and it should move it across. Brilliant. But we have the wrong material, so let's quickly go to that laser. Come on. Okay, what did I call it? I know that I did. Oh, it's hex laser. Did I hex laser? Not that one. That one. Good, and I think that's kept the same alpha. And finally, just do Control D, missile launcher, icon panel, and this is going to be 0.6667 to 1. And again, yeah, it does adjust those values at the top, doesn't it, to keep everything relative. And finally, we'll just set this to the missile launcher panel, and there you go. And that, guys, is our panel. How easy was that to do? How easy was that? And you can adjust the size here. And if you want to, you see now, the good thing about this is if you adjust the panel size, if it'll let me, it's not that it is slowly letting me. You can see that the actual other subpanels will adjust automatically. So this is quite good. I mean, I don't want to do that. I'm going to keep it at 480. Because that keeps everything in a rough 4:3. I know you're going to say, well, it's not quite 4:3, Richard, because of these gaps, but you know what I'm going with that. The other thing I forgot to mention was that you can see this Raycast target. Make sure that's checked. The reason you need to make sure that's checked is that you want to be able to click on this with the mouse. And I think if that's unchecked, it won't let you click on it. I came a cropper with this. It took me quite a little while to work out what it could have been. It seems like they've come as default now. But when I initially did it, I don't think that was checked, so I'm not sure what I did wrong. Alright, so we've got our laser panel. So let's go back into our no, not open project, open scene. No, if I forget that, I'll just double click it here. It was imports, isn't it? And we'll say don't save because I've already got one. You'll notice there's some credit values there in terms of how much it's going to cost. We'll come to that in a minute. I think that's pretty easy to do. You just need very simply to add some text to each of the panels. And where have I put this? So under the canvas here, I've put the turret bar here. In fact, what I might do just to clean things up a bit, shall I put some? I'll create an empty under here, and we'll call this. Excuse me. Up you go. There we go, and we'll call this info text or something like that, and we'll just grab this lot and drag that in, so everything's nicely parented. I don't think that's going to mess anything up. Probably will. I don't think those values are passed in, aren't they, by reference? There's no lookups against them on children. We'll find out later on when that doesn't work. Alright, so we've got our turret bar, which is this piece down here. Our info text, which is the bit up the top there. We're not caring about that right now. Great, so now all we need to be able to do is have a way to be able to drag, click on that and drag and start positioning these onto the play area here. Now, the concern I had was, well, how on earth do I do this? I can probably easily work out what the drag and drop click buttons are, but how am I going to know whereabouts it is? So what I did, and I can tell you, I couldn't believe this worked out of the box, but I created a terrain collider quad, just a quad, and I turned off the. Curiously, the mesh renderer is on, which I didn't think it would be, given that we can't see it. Let me just quickly adjust. I suspect that's because that's weird. I wasn't expecting to be able to see it. Sorry, let's quickly. Maybe it's. So let's just double click it. It's over there. Is that because let's just do Control Z. I tell you why. It's because I think I've rotated it. It's probably the Z angle that I need to move up. There we go. There it is. So what I thought I'd do is I would create this quad and then put that in the play area. Let me just spin to the top. Alright, so this is the area where you can drop these things. I'm already not liking the fact that it's a little bit high, so we can adjust that in a second. And I added a collider to it. Alright, now what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to add what's called a raycast. And a raycast fires a ray from a certain point to another point. So we're going to fire a raycast from the mouse, if you like, from the camera, where the camera is pointing in the mouse position straight towards the play area, and say, is there anything along that line? Right. And then what we'll do is we'll use this collider here, and we'll say, yes, I've bumped into the terrain collider quad. Where did I bump into it? Okay, I bumped into it, let's say, at this point, the top right hand side. Great, I will hover a prefab, one of these prefabs, the missile launcher or the laser gun or the machine gun, at that point. And I didn't think this was going to work out of the box, I'll be honest with you. I thought there's going to be all sorts of problems with raycasting and angles, and it worked. And I'll take you through this now. The script I've written, I'll take you through it. I think it's complicated, but take your time to look at it, and you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. So let's just reposition that. I've got this on the top and I'm in ISO mode. I can just about see the 3 bars there. So I'm just going to reposition this to there, and I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Let's just make sure it's nice and close to the ground, which it is not. So let's just move it down a bit as well. Just move it down until it disappears. There we go. In a minute we can switch this mesh renderer off because it's got the collider here. Okay, the collider actually is all that we care about. I just added a green material and just stuck it on there, just so I could see what I was doing. So let's spin back to the top view, and let's just make this a bit bigger on is it the Y? No, that's the movement, you idiot. The Y? No, not in this case. Okay, it's Control Z. That one. That's the rotation. What are you doing? Scale. I'm so sorry. Scale. There we go. So it's difficult. It seems to be monkeying me around, but that looks a bit better already. Let's just set the scale to 1 then, shall we? How big is that? Hasn't gone shooting out the underneath, has it? This is annoying. Let's turn the terrain off a sec. What we'll just do is I think that's fine. You can see it's actually not gone over that bit. Just drag it down a touch. Yeah, you can actually. Yeah, no, it's quite large. We want that in the centre, don't we? So let's just group them at 0.1. Okay, and start sliding up. Sorry, guys. This thing just. Oh, look, that diagonal is the clue, isn't it? That diagonal there, that diagonal line that shows us the diagonals of the quad. Perfect. Sorry, guys. So let's try 0.35. That's a bit more like what I'm thinking of. Let's just double check. I'm playing around with this. Every time I play around with it, I seem to find another angle. I might just make it a little bit bigger on the X as well. Maybe 0.7. That's probably next 6.8. 6.5, 6.7. Just so it's taking up the whole thing. Okay, that's good. You can see actually it looks like these bits are slightly raised. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Just keep it near the floor. And now we can turn off the mesh renderer, and so you can just see the collider there. Great, so we've got this collider. Wonderful. And now what we can do is we can say when we raycast, if it hits this collider, then position that whatever it is that we've clicked and dragged, position it there, and then when we let go, actually what I did was create a new instance and kept, if you like, each one of these has a prefabricated instance that can be dragged around, and then when you unselect it, it will create a new one. All right, let's take a look at our scripts. I don't have one I developed loaded, so let's quickly load this up here. I created a new script called drag handler. All right, let's have a quick double click on that. Actually, I might make this just a touch bigger. That's a bit better, so hopefully you can see that. And the way you handle drags in Unity, and this script is rather large, so I'm going to try and I've added a few things to this, and so I'll try and go through the basics first, and then show you what I did afterwards. All right. In order to handle the drag feature, you need to implement 3 interfaces: I begin drag handler, I drag handler, and I end drag handler. As it turns out, I don't think I do anything on begin drag right now. All right. Now, in order for this to work, we need to have an on drag implementation, and what this is going to do, as you may remember what I said a few seconds ago, is we're going to create a raycast of where the mouse is clicking, if you like, where the mouse is at a present time. This is very standard. If you look anywhere on the Unity forums, you'll see this quite often. It's a way of saying this is where I clicked on the screen. You know, if you want to click on a turret, for instance, which is probably something we'll do a bit later on, and bring up a little options menu, this is how you would do it. You would have this screen point to Ray, and then that says this is the line that we're going down. Okay, and there's sometimes you just do a raycast, which produces one result if it hits something, and I think it returns the first thing it hit. I wasn't comfortable with that because I wanted to be able to say, no, well, it might hit something else. It might hit an alien first, for instance, or something like that. And I didn't necessarily want it to just disappear because of that. So what I've said, I've used a method called Raycast All, and Raycast All returns everything it hits along that ray. In this case, along a distance of 50. I think that's too high. I'm going to keep it at 50 for now because I didn't notice any performance issues. You can see that perhaps this might be a problem if 50 is quite a long way. So it might be an issue. If you're having performance, maybe investigate lowering that value. As soon as you lower it, of course, you run the risk of not hitting the collider that you expected. All right, and then a simple, if hits is not equal to null, although this doesn't ever seem to return, this raycast tool doesn't seem to return null, but I'm an old fool and I like to just double check on things like that. And hits.length is greater than 0. So if it's hit something, brilliant. What I want to make sure is that it actually does hit the terrain collider quad. All right, let's just quickly spin back here so you can see what I'm talking about. This, so it hits this, right? I want to make sure that it's hitting this because it could hit other things. I want to make sure it's hit this. If it's hit that, then that's the important thing. So I get a method down here, that goes through all of the hits that array returned, and says, are any of them called Terrain Collider Quad? Now, this is possibly a little bit risky, because if I accidentally renamed that quad, this would suddenly fail. So, worth thinking about. But for now, I've gone for that, because as you can see here, I've called it Terrain Collider Quad. In fact, I do remember putting a bug, because I think I'd forgot the D. It took me a little while to work out what was going on. But so we're saying if this collider that is hit, the game object name, sometimes you have to work back upwards, don't you? So you get the collider, then you get the game object connected to the collider, then you say the name. I love you, Unity, but sometimes this all seems a bit bonkers. And so then you check the name and you say, if it equals Terrain Collider Quad, return that index, return that hit, if you like, return that collider. If it's got to the end of this list of hits and found nothing, it's going to return -1. So now we can go back up here and we'll say if Terrain Collider Quad index is not equal to -1, so it has hit the collider, prefab instance.transform.position, and I'll just quickly show you up here. I've got this thing, the prefab, which we'll show you in a few seconds. Where'd it go? Where was I? I was here. Equals hits terrain.point. So that's the index of the collider quad that it found, and the point at which it hit it, and that's the thing that I could not believe worked straight away. So if I just quickly show you, if I click on this mesh renderer here, if I drag this around and it hits that point there, that is the point that this vector 3 here returns. I thought they're like these quads, there was going to be some horrible interpolation or some nasty blooming cosine or sine I'd have to do over the distance, but no, it works, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I was really pleased with that. And prefab.setActive equals true. So what's going to happen here is, depending on whether I'm actually in this collider area, if I'm not, then set it to inactive. Don't display it. All right. So let's just quickly show you how that looks. I'll just run this now. I know there's other stuff to it, so let's turn this mesh renderer off, click on play. Excuse me, one other thing, I need to add it. I did add, you'll see this here, if I go back to my canvas turret bar, you will see that under each of these I have added this drag handler script, and under that prefab machine gun turret for the machine gun, hex laser turret for that one there, the missile launcher for the missile launcher turret. There are some other problems I had to resolve, and we'll come to those in a minute, but let me just quickly show you what I'm talking about. Now I can just click and drag, and what that's doing is, because it's hitting that collider, the quad, that green quad that I created, it's saying, well, whereabouts did you hit it? Well, why don't you put the turret there? How cool is that? You'll notice that when I did that, it's slightly transparent. Can you see? You can see through it. And the reason for that is because, if I go back to here, I called a method called in the instance here, so you can see that I've instantiated that prefab, and I set it to false, just so that it couldn't be seen initially, or otherwise it'd be hanging around somewhere on the screen. And I run this script. I'll come to this one in a second. Remove scripts, because that was a big problem. But the adjust pref alpha. What did I call that? Prefab alpha. Let's just refactor and rename that now. Okay, that'll just a script down here. And what this does here is it goes, well, where's your prefab? Get all the mesh renderers in that prefab instance that I've just created, and change the color, set the color to, well, the same red, the same green, the same blue, but the alpha to 0.5. For me in order to be able to do that, what I had to actually do was go into my models, and under the machine gun turret, excuse me, come on, let me go. Where's the texture? Machine gun material. I had to change the rendering mode to transparent. It was opaque before, and I did notice that this has done something a bit weird. But so I had to do that for machine gun, missile launcher material, transparent, and the hex laser turret, laser gun. There's a couple here, isn't there? Where are you, laser gun? Hex laser gun material. There you go. So I had to set those to transparent in order for that alpha to actually work. All right, but it worked. But then that was it. And you can adjust that. I guess maybe that should be a public variable you can tweak. But for now, I've just set it to 0.5. Seemed about right. One thing that does start to affect, I think, is if I go back to my prefabs. It's only on the view screen here, but if I just go to machine gun turret, if I just drag this around, look, it starts to do some very weird things on the bottom right here. Can you see that now? It seems to have gone through the gap. This doesn't happen on the main screen, but it does happen on here. I don't know if that's a Unity bug, but it doesn't look right there. It scared me a bit, thinking, oh, I've messed up on the thing. I can't have it as transparent, but that worked fine. All right, now with that done, the next thing we need to do, the issue I came along, in fact, I will actually show it to you by not running this. Just take that out a second. I found this quite amusing. Is if I'll wait for the aliens to appear. If I just drag this, it starts firing while I'm dragging it around. Look, I can just drag around and say, oh, I don't want to place this anywhere. Now, there's a few ways we could tackle this. This is brilliant. This is a game ball in its own right, isn't it? Can I do it by dragging? Do I have enough time? Sorry, I'm getting distracted. There we go. Right. It's a game for your player. That obviously is not what you require. I started to tweak the script in turret targeting system. Turret targeting system here. Because we've got this disabled feature. State. In fact, I'm going to remove that because that's not true. I didn't end up doing that. I started to play around with that, but the problem was it started to mess with other bits here and some of the checks. It's possibly the right way to do it, but it required a bit of a rethink. So what I actually ended up doing, is going to the drag handler here and going through this remove scripts from prefab, and this goes through, looks at for any components in the children called, of type turret targeting system, which is interesting because obviously we don't use turret targeting system. We use machine gun targeting system, laser gun targeting system, and missile launch targeting system. But that's okay because this says no. This script is of a type turret targeting system because it's a subclass of it, and then for each one you find, destroy it. Alright, so remove that component, and that therefore means that it won't be doing any funky. If we go back into it now, let's just wait for the things to arrive. You can see now it's not doing anything. That's because the turret targeting system has been removed. That's good. A couple of things I had to do as well. The things like, if I quickly go over to the machine gun turret, something like that. I had to, funnily enough, I thought I had disabled the audio source. Interesting. Let me just run that again, just see if I'm getting a. The reason no, sorry. I can and should disable the audio source. The reason that's not failing now is because it's the turret targeting system that calls the enable and play. But you shouldn't have that enabled by default. Because what was happening was it was saying, well, I haven't got an audio source, and I haven't got this, and I haven't got that. And I think for the laser turret, I disabled the line renderer. Right, but these will get re-enabled when they're on there, but by default have them. Well, I'll show you if I just click this here now. If I just grab this, look, you can see it's still there. We just got to wait, but it disables it as soon as it's there. So the best thing is just to have it as disabled by default, and then you won't hear that issue. Now we haven't done the missile launcher yet, but again it doesn't stop us dragging it on. It doesn't do anything because we haven't actually attached the turret targeting system to this prefab yet. So if we do that, it's not going to do anything. But you can see this is really rather cool. And just to show you, by the way, if I'm not in that collider area, it disappears. You see, so that's a good place to show you. If it's not hitting that quad, it won't appear, which is exactly what we want. What we really want to be able to do is drop it in certain areas and have like perhaps a green path that shows us where we can place it. There we go. That's curious. Yeah, now you see that audio source it's not playing the audio source now. So for now, I'm going to put that back on. I guess what I did was turn off loop, didn't I? I never disable it. For the hex laser gun, I do actually disable it, but for the audio source, I stopped the loop. So not consistent, Rich. I'm sorry about that. Just a quick show of how the cost values look on these pieces here. Very simple. I just added a text field to it. I positioned it as a child of the of the appropriate panel, and then just kind of positioned it. Set the font to our space age, right aligned and bottom aligned, and that was all I did. Okay. I used a euro symbol. I think I had to copy and paste it from another program, because if you just try and do euros here, I had to do a space at the end as well. I was getting annoyed with the padding. Yeah, all Control 4 should be a euro, but it doesn't work here. So that's a bit weird. And I think that was all I did, guys. That was. Oh no, hang on. There's a couple of other things I need to show you in Drag Handler, aren't there? Of course. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't show you the what happens when it finishes, which is on end drag here. I do apologise. The last piece of the puzzle, which is saying if. And this is an important. This worked. It makes me a little uncomfortable, but it worked. We're saying when you finish dragging, if the prefab is still active, so i.e. this thing here is saying on drag, and it defines whether to set active to true or false. So when you stop dragging, if it's still active, then instantiate the a new prefab instance at the point of the where the prefab instance is. Right, where it is right now, and quaternion.identity is the default rotation and scale and all that stuff, and then set the prefab instance to false. Alright, okay, so we're going to create a new prefab. That prefab instance, I'm tempted to call something else because it's slightly confusing. So, shall we call that? We'll call it hover prefab. Okay, I don't know if you love that or not, but the point I'm trying to make, I didn't want to. Yeah, there we go. It makes it a bit clearer to say that the one that's hovering, yeah, put a new prefab there, okay, and set active to false on the hover prefab. All right, so we'll have a new one. That was easy, wasn't it? Can you believe it? A couple of lines just to create the new prefab after you finish dropping it. I was blown away. I thought this isn't gonna work. I think one thing's clear, by the way, is that these damage per seconds on these turrets is too strong at the moment. It doesn't make for a good game. 2 turrets is absolutely destroy. You see, I think you'll see that basically this one's going to finish it off pretty blooming quickly. Yeah, there we go. Nothing gets away. There we go. Nothing's getting away. All right, so we might have to tweak the DPS, but we can look forward to doing that nearer the end of the game. Was there anything else in here that I needed to explain to you? On drag we've done. On begin drag we don't need. Update we don't need at the moment. I'm keeping it in there. Adjust the prefab alpha I've talked about, and the remove script. So that's it. That is all this script does. And like I say, just make sure on each of these guys here, machine gun, under the prefab you just drag in the machine gun turret, or the laser gun turret, or the missile launcher turret, and it's a done deal. Guys, thank you so much. I hope that made sense. I will post a list to the GitHub URL where you can download this stuff. Please try and use GitHub. You can download a portable GitHub. Where are we? Excuse me, let me hide that. Quick 1 second while I navigate to it. So here it is, gitbash.exe. And this allows you to do, I mean, without wishing to go into too much detail, it allows you to grab, put, commit files and things like that. Some of you will be very comfortable with this, I know, but some of you will say, oh, Rich, do I really have to? Can't I just download the package? Take some time, take a breath, learn something new, learn version control. It's not a dark art by any, but things have got a lot easier now. Life without version control previously relied on people making sure they had a backup, not sure what backup it was, not sure when they did it. Now what you can say is, you can say, I've got a version of file X and I've got a version of folder X, and I want to make that the production release folder. You know, this is the gold copy, and you would tag it or possibly branch it to say this is the This is the release that I'm going to do into production, and then any changes you make after that, you can go back to that tag and say this is what it went into production, and you can do what's called a diff between what's in production and what you've got now. GitHub itself, if I quickly take a spin there, this is GitHub. This is the website that GitHub uses. By the way, you can store all this stuff locally, but then what you can do is you can upload it to a Git repository, I guess you call it, GIT repository, and therefore make it available to the general public. You would have write permissions. Everybody else would have read permissions, and you can assign people with write permissions or whatever. It gives you all that functionality here. My project runs to about 700 meg, so I thought it was going to grumble, but it didn't say anything. It seemed quite happy. I don't know what my file size is. I'm not a Git expert by any shout. One of the things I loved, by the way, was that you can have an issues log. And this is the sort of thing that you would, when you do your check-ins, which is when you say you commit your code to say, yes, I fixed something, you can put a reference to a ticket in there. So if I just click on that, yeah, and I just if I just click that, and then I could put that in the comments when I do my check-in, and then therefore people can have a clear reference to what they're checking in. Now I know I'm going on, and I know this has nothing whatsoever to do with Unity, but I would like you guys to maybe take a look at this and just see what you think and get back to me, because I think going forward I'm going to not be producing packages anymore, but just giving you a link to this website, perhaps with I might start creating branches based on at certain points after I finish, for instance. So I'll probably create a branch now for this one. Alright, I'll send a link to that. Thank you again for watching, listening, and just apologies for any babble that I've been doing. I like that. Like, subscribe, comment. I love comments. I love some of the feedback, guys, you've been giving me. It's really appreciated. It makes me want to do more. I kind of work on a subscription model. I am now waffling far too much. I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Have a great time. Speak soon. Bye bye.